For 15 years, I lived a double life. You see, growing up in my immigrant family, the rules were simple. No dating, no friends, and no fun. Schoolwork is your girlfriend until you're done with your MD, PhD, or PharmD. Only after you're done with all of your education and are gainfully employed will the elders in the community consult and make a suggestion for an appropriate Vietnamese spouse. I watched as a kid all of my older cousins follow this very strictly prescribed path. Doctor, engineer, pharmacist, engineer, pharmacist. You get a wife, you get a husband, and you get to live happily ever after. But here's the thing. As I grew up, I realized that I liked the idea of dating, friends, and fun. So I did what a lot of kids do. I lied. And that's where my double life started. My older sister had blazed the path for me, teaching me how to be a good Asian child in a strict immigrant household while simultaneously trying to be a typical American teenager. So in high school, that meant a little bit of fibbing and sneaking around in order to make room for some friends, some fun, and a secret girlfriend named Kathy, who happened to be white. When I went to college, I further diverted from the path and majored in sociology instead of the prescribed engineering. What do you do with a BA in sociology, my parents asked me. Well, naturally, you go to graduate school. And that's when Kathy and I moved in together. But I knew this is something that my parents wouldn't accept. So I told them a distorted version of the truth, that Kathy and I were platonic roommates. And obviously this would be so much more believable if I conjured an imaginary third roommate to move in with us. We even had props for when they came over to visit. There was a futon in the spare room, a disposable razor and toothbrush in the downstairs bathroom, and even a note on the fridge that said, "Jake, your mom called." As grad school dragged on, my parents began to realize that I might not be the most suitable spouse for any successful Vietnamese pharmacist. Mostly because I had drastically lowered my earnings potential through my poor academic decisions. So I used this opportunity to begin a slow reveal of my relationship with Kathy. Eventually, Jake moved out, and Kathy and I bought a house together. All right? And so no matter the cultural background, buying a house is a pretty serious commitment. So now my parents' disapproval took on a different form. Their son, me, was taking advantage of this poor white girl who was sitting around waiting for a proposal, right? I had to endure almost daily phone calls from them asking when we were gonna get married. My mom used a mixed metaphor about getting milk for free from a cow when I haven't bought the beef. So I had to reassure them every single time, we're happy with the way things are, and no, we don't want to get married. Now, to this day, I actually don't know if they wore me down or if it was because my biological clock was ticking, but I did know that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Kathy. So I decided that I was going to propose to her on an upcoming camping trip to Acadia National Park. So this meant I had a finite amount of time in which to acquire an engagement ring on a graduate student salary while keeping it a secret from Kathy, who managed our joint finances. I started to research engagement rings, but realized quickly that I was out of my depth. And I remembered that my parents had a connection who could acquire diamonds for cheap. You just don't ask any questions about where they came from. So I asked them to hook me up. My parents were so excited that I would finally be making an honest woman out of Kathy, and it would bring an end to the cow milk beef scenario. So I told them my plan. If they could acquire a small diamond for no more than $500, I would pay them back as soon as I could, get that loose diamond, have it set into a nice simple solitaire, and I'd be golden, right? In their euphoria, they quickly agreed to help me out. Less than 24 hours later, They call me back. Hey, we have the ring. You mean the diamond, right? No, the ring. They went on to tell me that they had just purchased a ring valued at $3,500 for the low, low price of $2,500. And this is why Asian kids don't share anything with their parents. I couldn't afford a $2,500 ring no matter how good the bargain. And now the engagement ring that I was going to use to propose was picked out by my parents, which didn't seem very romantic. But you see, to my parents, this made perfect sense. When my mother arrived in this country in 1972 to meet her future husband, she was already wearing a wedding band that my father's parents had purchased in Vietnam. So they were just doing what they thought was right. Now, I couldn't act like a spoiled, ungrateful son because they cashed in a favor for me and they fronted the money. So I thought, maybe it's going to be okay. My sister, who was tasked to deliver the ring to me on an upcoming trip to the East Coast, called me as soon as she was alone with the package. I have the ring, she says, and it's beautiful. This was followed by a really long pause. But you have to do something about this. You cannot propose with this ring. It is not Kathy's style. It's Vietnamese bling bling. So what you need to know about my mother is that she is 4'11", but she takes up an enormous amount of space with her big personality. She is like a hip-hop artist when it comes to jewelry. You see, jewelry is a way to display your success to the world. The pieces that you wear have to be eye-catching, and they've got to have flavor. And in this case, for this ring, that big, bold flavor was fish sauce. When I lay my eyes on this ring for the first time, it looks like the Chrysler Building and a Super Bowl ring had had a baby. 29 diamonds in all. A big one surrounded by 3 tiers of smaller diamonds. Okay? It probably stood half an inch from the top of a finger. It was like a weapon. And if anybody happened to be wearing this ring, if they happened to brush their hand against the wall, a significant amount of plaster would come tumbling down. As my sister and I stare at this weapon, she offers generously, I'll loan you $1,000, and you can buy something more simple and subdued, and we'll figure out the rest later. And in that moment, I realize that the patriarchy really does suck. Right? I am now potentially $3,500 in the hole for 2 rings that symbolize something that I'm not even sure my partner wants. And at this point, I'm running out of time before our trip, so I rely on nostalgia to guide me to a little South Asian import shop in Northampton, where back in college, Kathy had purchased a lot of ornate silver rings. But it's not the 90s anymore, and in the location where that shop used to be was now a woman-themed pagan store. I am desperate, so I venture in. Luckily, they have rings. It's a miracle. And I agonize trying to figure out which womanly pagan-y ring best says, I love you, and I want to marry you. 90 minutes later, I come out armed, victorious, with a $15 Celtic band, just in time for our trip. The next week, on the top of a mountain, as the sun rose, I romantically popped the question, hey, do you want to get married? She responded with the traditional, are you serious? I went on to tell her about the epic journey I had just gone on to get this $15 ring, and I told her about the other ring. I opened the box to show her, and she was instantly blinded by all the sunrise glinting off that flavor. And she said, put that thing away. But here's the thing, I couldn't just put it away, right? I still had to pay for it and figure out what to do with it. With some coaxing from my sister, my parents agreed that I wouldn't have to pay for the ring. It was a gift to Kathy out of their love. It's amazing how far we've come, and I'm forever grateful for this gesture of acceptance, because I didn't have that money. Now, what Kathy and I really wanted to do was repurpose those diamonds, but that would mean ripping apart a symbol that represented a parent's love, and that felt selfish. After some months of negotiation, telling them it wasn't practical, that she would never wear it, and one last little fib that she does a lot of rock climbing, and so it was likely to get damaged, they reluctantly agreed that we could do whatever we wanted with it. In the end, we took about half of those diamonds and reset them into a third engagement ring and wedding band, and tucked the remaining diamonds away out of sight, because blood diamonds are forever. Really, though, those diamonds are a lot like the rules set out in front of me by my immigrant family. In order to put an end to my double life, I had to make peace with the fact that I could never be exactly the person that my parents wanted me to be. And I had to make some tough choices about which values and lessons my parents imparted upon me that I would hold close, and which ones I would tuck away in order to be my one true self. Thank you.